Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 5 Tips and Tricks for Careers in Athletics. I am your host, Dr. Maury Mosovitz, with my all-time most favorite, the most wonderful co-host, Jen Albanese. Welcome, Jen.
Hello, Maury. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast.
Very excited today to have an awesome guest. Mike Gennaro is here to be with us.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be very cool. It's always refreshing to chat with a coach because it's like a different perspective than what we're used to. Obviously we're not coaches, but we work on the administrative side. Yeah. So it's really cool just to listen to a different point of view and perspective on things. So
yeah, cool. It draws me back to the time working with lacrosse, like where I was in the thick of it. And I really love these conversations because like that time that I spent with that team and like the mentality and the coaches saw it is always something that's super exciting. And we both not every once in a while, would talk with our coaches that we supervise and we have exactly. That. So it's always a great time to get that out there on the podcast too. So exciting. I've enjoyed rowing lately. I've always have, but my niece is looking to be a coxswain in college. So I've had a lot of conversations with her. So
that's exciting. Exciting.
She's getting into the world of rowing. So this is probably going to be something that she'll end up listening to with her annoying uncle every once in a while. So she'll jump on a podcast and listen.
Well, hi, Dylan. Nice to hear. I hope you're enjoying the podcast.
So I've been holding this one back, but I do have to bring up because it's something that's very critical in our office this week. We have a copy machine that almost everybody in the department uses, Jen included. She comes down right outside near my office, and we have named it Bob Marley because it's always jamming, like constantly.
It's the worst.
It's a bad joke, but it is really true. Like you might get 2 prints out of it, and then you're fixing it again, and then 2 prints. So it has lived a good life. I think Jen and I were talking that it was there before we got to the department. Yes. So we're talking many, many, many years ago.
Yeah, we're not going to date ourselves on that one, but yes, it is.
So my staff, in all their excitement, has decided to have a funeral for Bob tomorrow. We will be having kind of a New Orleans style funeral where they're going to play Bob Marley music as we push it out of the department so that the new younger version can come in and replace it. A big area of excitement for our staff coming tomorrow.
Okay, so I know our listeners are just so thrilled with this. So I will make sure to get some photo, maybe a little bit of a video of it, and we'll post it on our socials because I know you guys are dying to see what happens with this procession for Bob Marley.
I mean, Bob Marley has had a real effect on people, especially over like the last month and a half. It really has been. I've
had my final moments with Bob last Friday before our home football game, and I'm happy to see him rolled out the department tomorrow. So,
yes, it was a stretch to try and figure out how to get this to work in our landscape of budgeting. But when my staff and I think every other staff around,
it was needed.
We went and dug deep to get his replacement. So I don't know what the next copy machine's name is going to be. Hopefully something that has nothing to do with jamming, but we look forward to it. Even more than looking forward to the new copy machine, we're looking forward to talking to Mike, and that will be
so much
after these messages.
Are you a loyal 5 Tips and Tricks podcast listener? If not, now is the time to start. Get all your info and fun content on the podcast by following us on all our social channels at @AthCareerPod. The 5 Tips and Tricks podcast is a part of Athletic Career Consulting. Make sure to reach out to us. The one-stop shop for everything is our website, www.athcareer.com. Remember, follow and like us on @AthCareerPod, rate and review us, and get all your info at www.athcareer.com. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Maury, would you like to introduce our guest today?
For sure. He grew up in Pennsylvania and started rowing at St. Joseph's Prep in Philadelphia, earning a spot on the U.S. Junior National Team in 2007. At Syracuse University, he captained the team and helped lead them to their first IRA Grand Finale in 20 years. all while medaling internationally with the U.S. under-23 team, including a world record gold in 2011. He went on to win gold at the Pan Am Games, served as an Olympic alternate in 2012, and medaled at multiple World Cups and World Championships through 2015. In 2016, he shifted to coaching, joining Yale at a top collegiate program where he helped lead 3 straight national championships. After promotion and a post-pandemic return to winning form, he became head coach in 2023. A year later, he was introduced into the Syracuse Rowing Hall of Fame. Today, he leads one of the most dominant programs in college rowing. He's a national champion, world medalist, and heavyweight crew coach. Mike Gennaro. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it, and I appreciate that polite intro.
Oh, I mean, that's one heck of a resume that you got there.
Yeah, some of the bits of it seem like a lifetime ago, but it all led me here, so I'm fortunate for it all.
So you have, I'm guessing, some very early mornings with our friend Dave Reichman and out on the water and some cold weather moments, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah. That was a very formative experience rowing at Syracuse, but in particular rowing for Dave. He's one of the greatest coaches I've ever had. I've learned more from him than probably every other rowing coach I had combined. He's a good friend of mine, and yeah, good times back then.
Yeah, he's one of the kind. I've got to work with him for many years, and no one else is like him. And he knows what he needs to do. He is super knowledgeable, and I've learned a lot about the sport through him. So I definitely appreciate his knowledge and his time. So good guy. But with that, let's get into your tips. I don't want to hold you too much on rowing, but what would you recommend for people that are interested in the world of athletics or rowing?
Yeah, I love the format of this. I think when I first thought about it, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I'll just come up with 5. But as I started reflecting on it, it was a lot more challenging than I thought. I think there's a lot of facets to the job, and I'm kind of sitting there thinking, well, which direction do I go with these? Is it the coaching, or is it the recruiting, or is it but I appreciate you guys making me go through that exercise, because it was an exercise for sure. But the first one that came to mind was pretty simple. It's something that I've relied on for a good part of my life, and it's know what you know and know what you don't know. And I think that's very much true in the world of coaching and in the athletic department, when you're surrounded by so many people that are good at their jobs, so many people with various backgrounds and different types of experience. It's okay to not always be the smartest person in the room, which for me, I don't think I've ever been the smartest person in a room unless I'm alone in a room. But in thinking about giving a tip or giving a piece of advice to somebody who's getting into coaching or thinking about going into coaching, I think this is just a critical piece. You can't be afraid to ask for help. You have to seek advice from the right people you trust. For me personally, in this area, something that I had to be very conscious about was delegating tasks to your staff and not keeping too much on your plate. I think it's easy to feel confident in yourself and think that you can do everything by yourself, but that's what the staff is there for. And I think it takes a bit of courage to go out on a limb and allow your staff to do what they're hired to do. And I think it's a key piece to coaching, is just knowing what you know, and even more so knowing what you don't know.
With those, transitioning from being a athlete into being a coach, what was that kind of piece of, like, people are always afraid of, oh, I need to show that I know these things. What was it for you that kind of helped you understand, like, it's okay to not know everything, and it's okay to make that transition as you were going from, being the person rowing to now giving them the instruction and being the one that needs to lead this operation?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly eye-opening, because there's a difference between being able to do it and being able to explain it or being able to coach it. And I think it's easy to lean on. I'm fortunate to have the rowing experience that I have, and the resume as an oarsman, because you can pull from a lot of that, and you can reflect on a lot of that, and you can relate to the student athletes you're working with. But it's not always as simple as being able to describe how things are supposed to feel, or helping somebody learn it. And so, um, I think that in knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know as a coach, I think it's important to continue to be a student of the sport. And regardless of what pinnacles you've reached at any various points of your career, these sports are always changing. Science is always changing. I think it's very important to continue to teach yourself and continue to learn more about your sport. And that, when you go through phases of that, I think you start to learn. You can kind of combine those two worlds. You sort of start to see these bridges get built between what you did as an athlete and now what your responsibility is as a coach, and it becomes a little bit easier to tie in those experiences in the form of teaching or coaching or explaining, rather than some moments of frustration when you just get the urge to just be like, well, just do it, just do it, just
Yeah.
it's just do it, and it's like, well, you're gonna need to break it down a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I loved how you said about delegate, because I think that that was one of the things that I feel like I still struggle with today, to be able to give up a little bit of the control and, trust that your staff is going to be able to do the things the right way, which obviously you hired them and they were hired to do a job. So I think that's something I'm always learning and working on, is to delegate responsibilities and have that trust that it's going to be done, as good as you would think you could do it. So
Yeah, it's
that's a
such
really
a
good one.
challenge, and I think anybody with an athletic background, I think many of us function I think we function well with a lot on our plate. I
Hmm.
don't think we're good at being
Yeah.
bored. It's kind of like something's wrong if your head's not on fire. And
Yeah.
so I think it's easy to be overwhelmed and think that it's normal, but all you have to do is kind of look to your left and look to your right and see at times your assistant coaches are bored. Like they don't have enough to do because you're sitting there, drowning in it all. And it does take some courage, but if you don't have the confidence in your coaching staff to take on these tasks, then what are they doing on your coaching staff? I think you have another bigger problem
Right. Right.
developing if you don't trust them to do certain things.
Exactly.
Awesome. Tho-
Exactly.
Those are great tips. Some people that I'm sure jumping into head coaching roles are going to really take a lot of that. So from that, let's get to number two.
Yeah, number two is communication is critical. Communication, I'll say, with the athletes, communication to the athletes, but you don't have to stop at coaching. I just think communication in life in general is critical. But um, I think it's something I learned from a mentor of mine in the world of coaching. It's so imperative. It's so important to tell the truth and to be honest with the athletes. And you're not here to be their friends. Doesn't mean you can't be friendly. It doesn't mean you can't. You just have to tell them the truth about what's going on. And some experiences that I remember having as an athlete is when a coach would tell you to do something and maybe you don't understand it, or maybe you think you're trying to do it, but the coach clearly thinks that you're not. And rather than elaborating, they'll just say it again louder with maybe a couple of curse words, and now, as if now I'm supposed to understand what it was. And it being on the other end of that now as a coach, I think it's important in those moments to look inward. If you tell an athlete to make a change, or you're giving him some instruction, he doesn't understand it, rather than making the assumption that he doesn't understand it, or rather than making the assumption, okay, he's just not good or he can't do it, I think you need to try to approach it from a different angle. Or you need to find the time to have a conversation with the athlete and And in those situations, I think dialogues are far more productive than monologues. And,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get an understanding of their understanding. Do you know what I meant when I said that? What are you thinking about when I said this? Or do you understand why we shouldn't be doing this with our body or our hands or what have you? And turning it into a dialogue where you're not just trying to teach them what you're trying to teach them, you're also gaining some valuable information as to what they're thinking and how they're approaching it. And I think that the job can get done a lot more effectively and more efficiently when you're thinking about the communication from that angle.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think a lot of young coaches just feel like they need to talk at, the students, and they might not have got that experience. And really, from my experience working with some coaches, the questions and the feedback and then helping them gauge themselves and reset themselves is almost more important than just telling people the game plan or how to do form, but to help them adjust. And it's something that is an interesting transition where being more patient and having to have those discussions and just keep in mind that you need to have that back and forth isn't something that people always think about, because I think they look at that stereotypical version of a coach on a movie that's blowing a whistle and telling everybody what to do. But the reality is there's a lot more talking back and forth than that
Yeah.
when you're on the fields or in the, on the water or wherever you're at. So no, that's an
Yeah, and I
awesome
think
point.
the communication when it's done well or done appropriately and it's in more of a conversation form, it forces the athlete to be engaged. It
Yeah.
forces them to use their brain and form thoughts, and in a way it'll raise their, what I call their rowing IQ, because it's forcing them to think about things. And yeah, I think the talking at athletes, you can very quickly go down a slippery slope of not really even hearing what you're saying, and you're just kind of talking to talk. The
Mm-hmm.
guy that was the head coach at Yale before me, Steve Gladstone, who is also a Syracuse alum, class of '63. He always had this great quote in these moments where we're in the middle of a practice and he's coaching and people aren't really responding to it. He used to always look at people and say, "How about I don't pretend to coach and you don't pretend to listen? How about we all do what we're trying to do out here?" And it was just this. It's such a direct kind of, it's just this. People just wake up and go, "Oh yeah, we're out here. Why don't we actually try to do what we're doing?" But and whenever Steve would say that, it was more directed towards the attention span of the oarsman. But I think about that sometimes as telling myself, "Hey, let's make sure what you're
Yeah.
saying is valuable. Let's make sure it's effective. Let's make sure there's a purpose to it." Because I think a lot of us in our different worlds and different lines of work, we can, you can just kind of go on these tangents, and you next thing you know, you're like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, geez, I've been talking for a long time. Is anybody even listening anymore?" It's just a way to stay on point. But communication is critical in the coaching world.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Well, with that, I think we're at number 3, Jen.
Yes, number 3. Very
Killing it.
good.
Number 3.
Number three, oh man, this is an important one, to me at least. Having courage in your conviction, and
Absolutely.
whether the decision is big or small, whenever it comes, I don't think it's good to rush into decisions. I don't think it's good to make rash decisions. But when it does come time to make a decision, as a coach, as a head coach, you have to own it. And it's okay to admit that you made a wrong decision, or maybe there was a different way of doing it. But um, you have to understand that you're the top of the food chain, and the decisions are yours, and you have to wear them. And I think that in that same conversation is a whole nother world of balancing the advice that you get from people, and sort of um, accepting feedback from mentors or other coaches, or looping in your assistant coaches, collaborating. But at the end of the day, you have to have courage in your conviction, and really hard to have courage in your conviction when you don't back the final decision because someone else is making the decision for you. If ultimately you're
Right.
getting tugged or pulled and you're letting people sway you in certain directions and it's like, okay, I guess we'll do it that way, and then it doesn't go well, it's really hard to own it because you weren't in accordance with it in the first place. And I think
Right.
as a coach, I have really only had to learn that lesson once, and then it's very hard to go back because you experience it once of, well, that's not what I wanted to do. And then you kind of have this moment of going, well, why did you do it then? You're the one that's supposed to be making these decisions. And so I think it's very
Right.
important to just be confident in what you're doing and back yourself when it comes time to make difficult decisions.
That can be a hard one. I like that's like a go with your gut type of a thing. And I think everybody has to, in order to learn it, you've got to make the wrong decision one time or have somebody sway you the wrong way. Like you said, the one time, and you won't make that mistake again. Because that's a hard one. Because if you do, agree with the choice, you make the choice, you feel like that was the right choice, you can back it up and you can explain why, and then you can own it if it doesn't work out well. But
Right.
if you don't have the, okay, like not 100% in, it's hard to explain it to somebody. So that can be a hard one, but that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that
That make
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're good.
Oh, yeah. I think when it's, when you don't feel that you have that sense of control or command, and I mean that in the right way, but
Mm-hmm.
when you don't feel like it's your decision, or when you feel like it's not going the right way, but you're just kind of gonna we'll see what happens. um I think your coaching style and the tone with which you coach, I think that all sways with your excitement and your disappointment or your frustration or even your lack of interest. And student athletes at the college level, they're like sharks. They can just taste the blood in the water. Like if they get a sense
Blood in the
that,
water. Yeah,
yeah, like
yeah.
if they get a sense that you don't back it, then it's gone, and
Right.
I think you might even, you don't even know that you're doing it sometimes. But I have
Mm-hmm.
definitely experienced that. I think far more enthusiastic to try to make something work when it's a decision that I'm confident in because the right pieces were contributing to that, versus some scenarios where it wasn't that way, and then you're kind of out there like you're almost not surprised that it's not going well. But the athletes get, they know that, and that's not a good situation to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually going to compare because I think this is something that goes across administration too. Because I know early on in my career, when I was kind of put into leadership roles, I was so used to being the guy that was like, okay, this is a direction we're going and you follow it. Like you, you can give your opinion, but if whoever was the leader said this is what it is, you kind of have learned in this industry, like you accept it and you adopt
Right.
it.
Yep.
And then as you transition into these leadership roles, you need to then be the one that says, okay, I'm going to make this decision, own it, even if it might not be the same as the people underneath of you agree. But you then need to have the confidence to say, nope, this is how we're doing it, and help them own it on your
Mm-hmm.
behalf. And that's like a
Mm-hmm.
crazy transition that I think a lot of people don't think about. And I'm sure the coaches go into the same thing. When you go from an assistant to the head coach, you have this change in the dynamic. And like you said, people know when you're not committed to your own decision or your own like rule or process that you
Game
commit.
plan,
They,
or
if
right,
you don't buy
exactly.
into it, yeah, they're not going to buy into it either. So I appreciate that so much in coaching, but also can relate to it on
Mm-hmm.
my own experiences and being on the administrative side. So that's an awesome tip. I really appreciate it. So it brought me back.
Thank you. Yeah.
100%. Yes. 100%.
Okay, number 4. I mean, we're doing good here. This is awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Number 4 is, yeah, I didn't really know how to kind of summarize it in a sentence, but I just kept jotting notes down about how everything that we do is for the student athletes. And I just can't stress that enough. They should come first. They need to come first, and they need to know that they come first. I think they need to know that. everything that we're doing, the coaching staff, the entire department, everything is for them, and that their best interest is always at heart. And this also can tie back into a couple of the other points with the communication and such, but they need to know that. They need to know that in situations of when you're coaching somebody, and they need to know that you're not coaching, that it's not personal. I'm not coaching you because I want to pick on you. I'm coaching you because I want you to get better, and I know that you can do better, or I know what your potential is, and we're trying to get you there. I think about it a lot when I was that age in my 18, 19, 20, young early 20s. If I felt like somebody in my life, a coach or a mentor, if I felt like they were invested in my future, I would have ran through a wall for them.
Right.
It really makes you want to perform or execute, because you're getting a sense that, man, this guy is really working hard to try to help me, and he's explained it a couple different times, or it's a teacher taking time out of their day to meet you after school, or coaches put it. When you get that sense as a 21-year-old young man, it really makes you want to go to work for them. And then on the contrary, if you get a sense that somebody in your life, in that figure, that relationship, if they're not invested in your future, it's really hard to give a full effort, because you're like, if you don't care, then I don't care. And
Right.
again, this can all circle back to the communication and such, but I think it's really important to put the student athletes first. And I think it's critical to get an understanding as to what's going on in their lives, and sort of being in tune with who they are and what they're doing, and learning the ebbs and flows of the college academic calendar, and not being oblivious to that. I think you need to
Right.
understand that these athletes are individuals, and they're humans. They're not robots. They're not professional athletes. They have other stresses in their lives. They have a lot of other important things to do, particularly with the academics and such. And you can't
Yep.
ignore that and just continue to push them so far that they just fall off a cliff. And I think the only way to get that information is by communicating with them. But it also, it just shows that you care about what they're doing, and you're not telling them that what they're doing at practice is more important than whatever else they have going on in their lives. I think it's possible to have a lot of full baskets. I think they can be dedicated athletes while also being dedicated students, and you need to promote that in your culture, because I
Right.
think it's appreciated by them, but it's also going to help bring the best out in them.
That's awesome. I just think, especially, with the academic level that you're dealing with at your institution, and the fact that you have students that you look at it as a holistic thing. Sometimes people hear student athlete and they really focus on that athlete part and don't realize that there's this whole person that's in there, and coaching is more than just what you're doing in that day to give them skill. It's really about developing them as people and helping them with where they're at and what their goals are. And when you do that, it helps the entire group. It makes everyone connected. It naturally falls into place, because you're doing all these things, putting them first, is such a great thing to remember. And I think sometimes people really forget how valuable that is, unfortunately. But I think that's an awesome tip.
Yeah, this is one that I find myself probably talking about the most with people who are interested in coaching, or just people who are just asking me about my job. I mean, you can't not talk about your job without talking about the athletes on your team, and just how important they are, how
Right.
much you respect what they do. Um, and you always need to be putting them and their well-being first, because that's how you're going to get the most out of anything. And if they're going through an exam period, or if the flu's flying through campus and guys are getting sick, what else can you do about it except look after them and help them all get through it, and try to tailor the program or the training that you're doing around that to help them all just maximize the opportunities that they have. And Oh, and also, it's fun. It's like it's the best part of the job is getting to build relationships with these
Yeah.
guys. And
Right.
kind of learning about what's going on in their lives. And but yeah, I think that's a good one.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes, it is.
when they come back and they're doing all these amazing things in their life, and some of them might go on to do stuff with rowing, but a lot of them will do these other things. And you go, wow, I feel like I'm a part of that. I help them get there. And that's some of the neatest things that you can get out of the situation. I feel like in doing this for a while now.
Yeah, and I think building a relationship with the athletes outside of the coach athlete relationship, or finding ways to communicate with them or engage with them, not in a change your technique or do more of this, do less
Right.
of that. I think that's also where the needle gets moved in their lives. A
Yeah.
lot of the great coaches I've had, like Dave Reichman, and I think about just how much I changed, and how thankful I am for these coaches. And uh, any one thing that I think about in terms of, oh man, that guy like really changed my life, or I wouldn't be the person I am today without him. Not much of that was like fixing my grip, or it was more something bigger,
Right.
something that I was struggling with something in my life, or I was struggling with something academically, and we just had this human conversation where I received some life changing advice. And I think that the coaching rowing is fun. It's what I love. It's what I've dedicated my life to. But you don't always feel like you're moving the needle on somebody's life when you're coaching rowing. You can use there's a lot of parts to the sport that you can teach them great life lessons, like hard work and accountability and stuff like that. But when you get the opportunity to really sit down and speak with the athletes, then you start to find these moments of being able to give them advice that you hope that they'll remember for the rest of their life.
Awesome. That's
That's so
awesome.
great. So great.
Okay, Jen, this is
All
your big
right.
question.
All right, Mike, last one. So, what do you know now that you wish you knew then? So, what do you know now at this point in your career that you wish you knew when you first started?
Yeah, this was this is a good one. Again, just like making me reflect, and well, there was a tie between two. One of them's a short one that I'll just rip through. One of them is just take notes often. Take notes on
Yeah.
everything often. I think when you're in the moment of something good or bad or ugly, you have this feeling of I'm never gonna forget this, and then time passes and you're like, dang, what was I thinking about that one time, or what did I do that worked so well? And so I think taking notes is something that I've
Yep.
gotten better at, and I wish I would have taken more notes from day one. But
Yeah.
the other one is keeping your expectations in check, and just not getting too high on the highs, too low on the lows, not putting any more pressure on yourself or your team than there already is. And kind of going back to the athletes being able to sense that, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important to not you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. It's okay to have high standards. It's okay to set lofty goals, but when you're expecting a team to do well, or you're not expecting a team to do well, and then it kind of goes the opposite, I think it really puts your emotions on a roller coaster, and then that now just becomes another variable that you need to deal with all the while,
Mm-hmm.
like the team's looking at you and you're trying to find the right words and your brain's all over the place. And so I think just being realistic with your expectations, keeping them in check, and just kind of focusing on what's right in front of you, and like, let's just make this part of practice the best we can make it. Let's just make this practice today, let's just get better today, and then we'll
Yep.
worry about tomorrow. But when you start going into those moments of like, oh, we're going to be so good this year, or we're not going to be so good this year, or it's just
Yeah.
really hard to do what you're supposed to do while also riding that roller coaster.
Yeah. Well, Mike, this was awesome. We could not have asked for better tips than that.
Yeah.
We
Those
really
were
appreciate your
amazing.
time. And
Yeah, well,
we thank
I'm
you
happy.
for
I'm
being
happy to
here.
help, and yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah,
This is
best of
great.
luck this upcoming season. I know that you got a long way to go through the season, and I'm sure you guys will continue to do well. And all the best. And thanks everyone for listening today. Jen, if you want to throw out all of our
Yes,
socials, so
absolutely. Yes. Thank you again, Mike. This was awesome. Yes. And everybody make sure you're following us on all our social channels at Ath Career Pod and liking and following us on all your podcast platforms. Every Tuesday, a new episode drops. So, yeah, thank you, everybody. And thanks, Mike. This is great. Thanks so much.
bye everyone.
Bye.
If you like the 5 Tips and Tricks podcast, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. You can rate and review us, including questions that may be answered on future episodes. The 5 Tips and Tricks podcast for careers in athletics is part of Athletic Career Consulting. Check us out at www.athcareer.com. Don't forget to follow and like us on your top social media platforms.